All week we've seen Islamic Jihad, and we all have seen it's not from God. It's straight from hell. We know that well, yet the Dawa boys think they have something to sell. The truth you'll get from us tonight. We won't give you darkness and tell you it's light. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another thrilling episode of This Week in Jihad with David Wood, the master apologist, master thinker, master philosopher, and I, Robert Spencer, author of the Quran. We have quite a bit to discuss tonight, David, both in the larger world and in the war in Israel, and I think we should start there with the great hospital hoax. Can
Hoax?
you tell us? Yes.
Wait, hoax?
Yeah.
There's no way.
Hoax.
I mean, I saw Mohammed Hijab, Omar Suleiman, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar. I saw everyone tweeting about how Israel targeted a hospital, completely obliterated the hospital with not 100, not 200, but 500 innocent civilians, men, women, and children in there. Clear condemnation. Nations around the world said, okay, no more discussions at this point. This is just too evil. So I don't know what you're calling a hoax here, Robert.
Well, for one thing, David, how many beds does Al-Ahli Hospital in Gaza City have?
Hundreds, obviously.
80.
Oh, okay. Well, there are a lot of people crammed. You know, maybe they had 3 or 4 people per bed.
Yeah, you never know. And the other thing is, there was no bombing of the hospital. There was a rocket that hit in the parking lot of the hospital. But the
Wait, how are 500 people in a hospital going to be killed because the hospital is leveled when it's a parking lot?
And
Come
the
on,
hospital
Robert.
wasn't even leveled.
You are making 0 sense here, Robert. Everything you're
Yeah.
saying is like makes 0 sense.
It's truth bombs, David, and it's hitting your hospital. This is the deal with what happened. It was Palestinian Islamic Jihad. They were firing rockets at Israel from near the hospital, and one of them misfired and hit this hospital. And then, of course, because we are dealing with people who believe that war is deceit, they told the world, oh look, Israel bombed our hospital. And this is so terrible. The Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau denounced Israel immediately. Rashida Tlaib, as you noted, denounced Israel immediately. Many other people denounced Israel. The international press ran with stories. There were headlines all over the world this morning. New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, everywhere saying Israel hits hospital in Gaza. But it was Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Yes,
I
sir.
read. I'm not. I can't verify this, but I read somewhere that because they launched thousands of missiles, but I read that somewhere between 5 and 10% of their missiles misfire and actually land in Gaza. This one just got a lot more attention because it supposedly hit a hospital, and so it became a big news story. But yeah, it's apparently just one of their many hundreds of rockets that misfire.
Yes. They have many rockets that misfire. As we see here from Sonia Rainey, Hamas can't even make peace with a parking lot. There were Hamas operatives who were caught on audio talking about the fact that this was a rocket of their own, or a rocket of Islamic Jihad, rather, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, that misfired. And so it's fairly conclusive. The IDF actually did an investigation, said this was Palestinian Islamic Jihad and their rocket. And the funny thing is that nobody wants to believe the IDF. Everybody immediately says, oh, it's the IDF, they're lying. But when Hamas says it, the whole world prints it as if it's fact. And yet, Hamas is the one that believes in the guy who said war is deceit. and specifically allowed for lying in wartime. And Israel does not have teachings of that kind. So, the immediate thing would be to be skeptical of the side that allows for deceit in exactly these kinds of circumstances. Would it
Or,
not?
or at the very least, just be skeptical in general. Like if you want to say, hey, these guys are at war. They're both saying, hey, the other side, they're the bad ones, and so on. So just be careful when stories are coming out to wait till quite a bit of evidence comes in. Because I mean, on the one hand, I get it. If there's breaking news, you want to share the news. You could, more information could come in that derails the story. But I mean, Hamas would kind of be some of the last people on the planet I would listen to when they tell me what actually happened. But
Indeed.
I mean, everyone, the New York Times, everyone will just run with Hamas's version of events. It's
Always, always. And it's astonishing, but it's another example of something we've talked about many times, David, and that, of course, is the leftist Islamic alliance, the fact that the left loves jihadis. And so they see Israel on the one hand, they see Hamas on the other. Israel says this happened, Hamas says that happened. They print, hey, that happened. Hamas said it, we believe it, that settles it.
and it's weird because it's not terribly it's not terribly difficult to include some language that clarifies that this story may change, right? You could say, hey, reports are coming out that this happened at a hospital. One side is saying this, the other side is saying that, but we'll find out more as more information comes out in the coming days. Instead, it's just, nope, Israel bombed a hospital.
Yep.
Hamas
Israel
said
bombed a
so.
hospital. That
Hamas
was
said it.
the headlines everywhere. And then the headlines were quietly and without any notice changed to hospital was bombed. They didn't say, of course, Palestinian Islamic Jihad bombed the hospital, even though they have testimony from both sides saying that. And so they did change the headlines, but not in any responsible way.
And then it turned into, and even at this point, even though a bunch more information has come out, I still don't know exactly what to believe without really doing a serious investigation. Just because there's so much lying going on. But as you pointed out, now it's just, oh yeah, a part of a misfired rocket landed in a parking lot and messed up a bunch of cars.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Oh.
And of course, the other thing that nobody wants to talk about, and that is that Hamas stages attacks from civilian areas. And so Shifa Hospital, which is a larger hospital in Gaza, is actually known to be a Hamas command center. And they know Israel doesn't want civilian casualties because civilian casualties are used against it. And so they operate in the hospital. And then if Israel does strike the Shifa hospital, they can say, oh, you see, Israel is killing civilians.
Yeah, I just mentioned this in a live stream yesterday, but I read it and then I couldn't remember which article I read it from to get the actual person who said it, but it was from an Israeli, and he was saying, he was explaining like the feeling. He goes, imagine there's a terrorist who has a gun and he's going to kill your kid, and you've got a gun, but he's hiding behind his kid. It's like, what do you do? He's about to kill your kid. He's about to shoot your kid. He's got a gun. You've got a gun. He's about to shoot your kid, but he's hiding behind his kid. So you can only stop him from shooting your kid by shooting at him, which has a good chance of hitting his kid. And he said, you don't want to do either one of those. You regard both of those as bad scenarios. He's saying, but what do you do? He's like, this is the situation we're forced into. We want to defend this, but we're going against guys who are embedding themselves, with civilian men, women, and children all around them. And what do? We don't want to do this, but we don't want to allow them to do what they want to do. So he says, this is the situation they're knowingly forcing Israel into, just because they know eventually you'll decide, Okay, I got to protect my people, so I'm gonna go after this guy anyway. And you're going to kill some people, and then, well, it's a photo op for future generations of jihadis to be inspired by.
Yes, and even the UN has criticized Hamas for using civilians as human shields, for putting rocket launchers in playgrounds and schools and hospitals and that kind of thing. But they keep doing it, and of course, as we have noted today, the establishment media very happily plays along. All right, let's go to Mahmoud Az-Zahar, who is a senior Hamas official. And this is actually a speech that he gave last December, but it's been circulating around this past week because of what's going on and with the massacre in Israel last Saturday, or Saturday, October 7th, that is. And it's interesting that Mahmoud Az-Zahar says this, David, and I quote, "The entire 510 million square kilometers of planet Earth will come under a system where there is no injustice, no oppression, no treachery, no Zionism, no treacherous Christianity, and no killings and crimes, like those being committed against the Palestinians and against the Arabs in all the Arab countries, in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and other countries." Now, surely, what is he talking about? A system in which there's no injustice or oppression, no Zionism, no Christianity? Surely he believes in tolerance, doesn't he? I mean, after all, he's a Muslim leader.
Yeah, and I mean the level of delusion here is what's most glaring. I mean, the insanity. Like, you could give these guys everything you want as far as Christians, Jews, atheists, Hindus, apostates. You could give them everything they want. They just start killing each other over their differences. That's what they do when they don't have another a common enemy.
Mm-hmm.
They all start blowing up each other's mosques. We've been through this over and over again. Where no, notice what everyone's saying. But the Palestinians are being oppressed. That's why they're becoming terrorists. Christians and Hindus are being horribly oppressed in places like Pakistan. So, and yet when we get breaking news of a mosque being shot up or blown up in Pakistan, even though we have, you could start thinking, okay, maybe some Christians or some Hindus got really mad about the oppression and went and blew up a mosque. But it seems to always be, no, one Muslim group blew up the mosque of another Muslim group.
Indeed.
And so it's just interesting. It's just very interesting that that the justification here is, look, you've got Muslims who are being oppressed. That's why they're launching terrorist attack. But even when they're the ones oppressing others, they'll still go launch terrorist attacks. So what's going on there? I don't know. Strange world.
But I think Mahmoud Az-Zahar is really the John Lennon of the Palestinian territories.
Yeah, isn't it? I mean, it's just insane. Yeah, we're going to spread Islam, and that'll bring justice. Where has Islam brought justice anywhere?
Indeed. But he's imagining it. See, that's why he's John Lennon.
Yeah,
Imagine no oppression, no Christianity. All right. Anyway, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Yes.
Wait, does that make me Yoko here?
Only if you start caterwauling. Now, I don't know. You can imitate everybody else.
I don't know what she sounds like.
Actually, she sounds like a 3-year-old with a very tiny little small voice, and then starts screaming and yelling, and that's what she does for singing. There's a very wonderful video you can find of John Lennon playing. You saw that?
I saw the one where she's just yelling in it looked like a museum or something like that. And she's just, you ever see that?
No, that one I don't know, but that I don't really follow her very closely. But the one with that I was referring to is John Lennon with Chuck Berry, and they're playing Johnny Be Good and Chuck Berry songs like that. And then she starts doing that, wow, and you can see the look on Chuck Berry's face. He's just horrified. How did this happen?
You should have duck walked right into her until she fell off stage.
But anyway, that is not jihad, ladies and gentlemen. It's not what you paid your ticket for. So back to the jihad. The interesting story also out of Jerusalem the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, who is actually a relic of the Crusades. In the time of the Crusades, the Latin Church, that is the Church of Rome, what is now today known as the Roman Catholic Church, established its own bishops over various ancient Christian bishoprics that had been staffed by what would now be called the Orthodox Church. And so after it all got sorted out and there were no more crusaders in the area, a lot of these Latin patriarchates and Latin bishoprics remained. And there is still a Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem and a Roman Catholic presence in Jerusalem. And the present Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, who has the wonderful name, he is Cardinal Pier Battista Pizzaballa. I don't think he's native of Jerusalem, but anyway, Pizzaballa.
What's his role?
He's the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem.
Latin Patriarch.
I don't know how much you know about the church.
No, I don't. No.
The Apostolic Church, David. But in any case,
We call it Belgol. So,
yeah, exactly.
What I was thinking when you were saying all those names.
There were patriarchates that were established first there were bishops in pretty much every church, and then that became impractical. The bishops were put in charge over numbers of churches, and then as time went on, bishops of large cities became in charge of the bishops in the area, and those developed into the 5 original patriarchates of Rome, Constantinople, Alexandria, Antioch, and Jerusalem. And so during the Crusades, the Latins were over in that area of the world. They put a Patriarch of Constantinople, Latin Patriarch of Constantinople, in Hagia Sophia in 1204, and they put various other Latin patriarchs on the other ancient patriarchates at various times. And there's no more Latin Patriarch of Constantinople, but there's still a Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, Pier Battista Pizzaballa.
Maybe we should get one back there in Constantinople.
No, I don't think that would be a good idea.
There's a big giant church there.
Yes,
oh wait, they turned that into a mosque. Hang on.
The big giant church belongs to the Orthodox Ecumenical Patriarchate, and he's still there too. Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew of Constantinople. He's still in Constantinople, ladies and gentlemen. But anyway, the Pier Battista Pizzaballa, he came from Italy, and he go to Jerusalem, and you cannot get good rigatoni. But anyway, he offered to exchange himself for the Israeli children Hamas has hostage.
Nice.
And I think now that is right there, that is the contrast between Christianity and Islam. On the one hand, you have all that raping and killing and taking of hostages, and on the other hand, you got Pizzaballa, and he says, I will give myself if you free these children. Now that's a Christian, ladies and gentlemen.
Mm-hmm. That's how it's done, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right. So hats off to you, Pizza. Okay, what else we got here? We got lots here. They had the Day of Jihad. It was kind of a fizzle. Actually, it was more of a media creation than anything else. But Khalid Mashal, the former top dog of Hamas, he called for an international day where the Muslims would make themselves known in solidarity with Hamas. This became marketed really by the media more than anybody else as a day of jihad. On that day itself, there was an Israeli diplomat who was stabbed in Beijing, and then there was a killing in a French school. But that was about it for that. I don't think we talked about that last week. Did we, David? We might have, but in any case. The rhetoric is also quite high. Heated, I should say. And an example of that came from Turkey, where Yeni Safak, which is a Turkish newspaper, Turkish magazine, they ran this story, and you see the picture there, and that is in Turkish, "Why did Allah curse the Jews?" And so they ran this whole article all about the Quran.
Which time?
Well, it's the Quran. They quoted, actually, I've got the verses right here that they used. 288, and they say, "Our hearts are hardened, no, but Allah has cursed them for their unbelief. So little is what they believe." And then 3:112, "They'll be stricken with disgrace wherever they're found," and so on. 447, "O you to whom the book has been given, believe in what we have revealed, confirming what you have, before we destroy faces so as to turn them around." And 564, the Jews say Allah's hand is chained.
What I find most interesting in all of this is how rapidly this unfolded in the time of Muhammad. The entire time he's in Mecca, so 12 years, at first, preaching to his friends, then more openly. The entire time he's there, it's, hey, the Jews and Christians know this stuff. Yep, I'm right there in their scriptures. Yep, they can confirm this. Guys, you don't believe me? Just ask the Jews. The Jews can tell you I'm right. When the Jews see me, they're going to say, yep, this guy's a prophet. This guy's 100% in line with our prophet. So this guy's a true prophet. Yep, just ask the Jews, guys. I know I'm surrounded by polytheists who don't know any better, but once we get some Jews around here, they're going to confirm me, guys. The Jews, trust the Jews, trust the Jews, trust the Jews. Whatever happens, trust the Jews. The Jews are the final authority in these matters. They will affirm me. And he goes there and they reject him. And he'd built up his community to view the Jews as some kind of religious authorities in these matters that would verify and confirm him as a prophet. He goes there and like, who are you? One, you're claiming to be an Ishmaelite. And two, you're telling us we have to believe in Jesus as the Messiah. And wait, what? What's going on now? So they reject him, and then they start pestering him with questions that he's supposed to know as a prophet. And according to the Quran, he does a bang up job answering their questions. But you can tell in the sources they think he's a total joke with the answers that he's giving, and so he just becomes more and more hostile to them. And you have in the sources these back and forth between him and the tribes, and he's exiling them, and then he just exterminates the Qurayza Jews, but it's really just it's the same idea as him saying you got to kill the apostates, you got to do this, and you beat your wife into submission. It's just like he has this terrible fear of not being in control, and especially of being rejected and abandoned. And so it's you're an apostate, you're gonna leave me, you got to die. The Jews, you didn't confirm me, now you guys have to die. And then he becomes so enraged that he gets to the point where, guys, the end's not going to come until you go exterminate all these guys who keep exposing me as a false prophet. You got to exterminate them. It's the only way. And it's just like this all happened in well under a decade. Well under a decade. He goes from these guys are the authorities in matters of religion who are here to confirm me to you've got to completely exterminate them.
It's kind of astonishing how many times in the Islamic texts he is exposed as a false prophet. First, when he's answering these, given all those bang-up answers to the Jews' questions, and it's clear that he's not being convincing at all. Another time is when he claims to have been taken on the winged donkey to the Temple Mount and goes to meet all the prophets and meet Allah in paradise. And then he tells the people in Mecca the next day, hey, I went to Jerusalem last night. And then some people who actually been there say, wait a minute, tell us then what's here in Jerusalem, what's there? And a map comes down from Allah and he answers all their questions right. But then the Islamic story says, and then a lot of his followers left and stopped following him. And I think, wait, he got all the answers right. Why are they leaving? Mm-hmm. Always more than meets the eye in those stories. Anyway, lot of shows of support from Muslims around the world. Terrible, I think this is the one, let's see. In Germany, in a terrible reminiscence of Germany's ugly recent history, by recent I mean the last 75 years, the homes of Jews in Berlin were marked with Stars of David. And it seems as if that was designed to intimidate, which is, of course, a classic tactic of jihadis and their peaceful enablers, and to terrorize them into submission. In the UK, The chant went up once again, Kaibar, Kaibar, Ya Yahud. Can you remind us what that's all about, please, sir?
Yeah, that's reminding. It's still the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, if I were a Muslim, Kaibar is the last thing I would want to remind anyone of. That's when, according to Muslim sources, Muhammad was poisoned by a Jewish woman whose entire family had been slaughtered. And if I didn't know anything else about Muhammad, if I knew nothing about Muhammad, if I hadn't read anything in the Quran, anything in the Hadith, except the story of Muhammad and his men showing up to Kaibar. Interestingly, they stormed them in the morning. These guys are coming out, and it says they're coming out with their farming tools and stuff like that. When the Muslims descend on them and so on. So they conquer Kaibar, and a woman whose father, husband, and I think it was her uncle or something like that had all been slaughtered in the name of Allah, actually says, "Hey, I'd like to cook a delicious meal for you, Muhammad." And Muhammad, tactical genius that he is, goes, "Durr, yeah, I like sheep. Give me some durr." And he died because of this. He actually sees his buddy turn green and drop dead, and it said he was it was like, oh yeah. Then they tossed a piece to a dog to verify that it was the sheep causing it. So, but he sees his buddy turn green, and then Muhammad goes, "I got a revelation. It is telling me it's poisoned." And but he had already consumed some of it, and then he spends the next 3 years, according to their sources, in pain until he eventually dies of the poison. He says he's dying from the poison, and Muslims keep pointing to this. You see, this is what to expect, Jews. It's like, what, you're going to attack and defeat some Jews, and it like completely destroys your prophet? That's what you want to remind people of? Yeah, that's what you want to remind him of? That going after the Jews really, really messes you up in return? Because why? I mean, I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah, fair point.
Well, of course, they are, to be sure, we should emphasize for people who may not know that they are talking about the massacre, and that the massacre is going to come again.
Yeah.
That's
the point, though. They keep referring to the massacre and not, hey, yes, you massacred them, and you paid dearly for it. There were consequences for your massacre. So what you're saying to the Jews is, hey, we're going to massacre you in a situation that gave us the worst consequences we've ever suffered in our religion, the death of our prophet, the horrible agony and death of our prophet. And Aisha said, in Sunan ibn Majah, I have never seen anyone in more pain than Muhammad. And this is a girl who'd seen quite a bit of pain in her life.
Yep. She also said she had never seen anybody suffering more than the Muslim women, the believing women.
Yeah. So anyway, that's okay. Keep bragging about the massacre that got your prophet killed in return.
Meanwhile, a lot of open solidarity for the Hamas murderers. This is from the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, where I attended school myself. I know this area very well. I've stood right where she's standing there, but I did not say all of us are Hamas. And this is just incredible to me that there is so much support for this kind of thing, and it's kind of out in the open now. It's as if a lot of people around the world have decided that there's no consequences they need fear in the West, and so they can just be openly in favor of the mass murder of innocent people, and there will be no consequences. I'm not talking about vigilante action or even legal action, but nobody will even say, hey, that's terrible. Wow, you must be a really horrible person that you're supporting this. That kind of thing. It's also become common to tear down the posters of kidnapped Israeli children. All over the West, in the UK and the US and elsewhere, there have been posters put up of the kidnapped Israeli children asking if people just by any chance have any information or come across anybody who might have any information to let people know. But all over the place, these posters have been torn down. Here you see 2 hijabbed women in the UK tearing down the posters. They just have no shame about this whatsoever. Then there is Muhammad, what's his name? Muhammad Jihad Ahmed. And he's a teacher in Queens. And he posted this image of a paraglider. Whoops. This image of a paraglider with the, not I stand with Robert Spencer, but I stand with Palestine. Now, what's with the paraglider, David? What's that all about?
Well, Robert, as Israel has attempted to improve its defenses over the years to keep terrorists from coming in, just blowing up buses and restaurants and so on, jihadis come up with better and better ways of getting past the defenses. And so we're familiar with tunnels, and then we saw videos of bulldozers and so on plowing through fences, but also they were hang gliding. They were hang gliding over the fences to get to the concert to massacre people at a concert, and that's pretty rough to deal with. Like, you think, oh, okay, I want to keep these guys out, so I'll build a really high fence and put plenty of razor wire on there, and I'll have 2 layers to the fence and so on, and then I'll have sensors that detect if something is trying to go through the fences and so on, so I can notify people. And so and these guys just start hang gliding over the fences. And notice, it doesn't take a lot of time. If there's any sort of gathering, and you could just fly over the fence real quick, and then just massacre a bunch of people. I mean, my goodness, what do you do in those situations? But anyway, so that's like they were on those gliders to massacre people, and then you have these people in the West. Hey, yeah, we really like that hang gliding, massacring people at a concert idea.
And so this guy is a school teacher, and he's out here applauding mass murder. And he's a New York City school teacher. There's no indication that since this came out that he's faced any disciplinary action. Nobody seems to be concerned about him telling the kids that this is a great thing, that these people were murdered and by these paragliders at a
Where'd you say New York?
Yeah, in Queens.
Oh, AOC will probably give him a medal.
Yeah. Next mayor of New York, Mohammed Jihad Ahmed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then we go to Jordan. In Jordan, there's a former senator and a prominent public figure, a businessman, Talal Abu Ghazala. And Talal Abu Ghazala said, I thought this was a very interesting quote, David. He says, "We're going to win because Israel will not sacrifice a single person." He says, "There isn't a goal for which it would sacrifice a single person. They are afraid of death. Death for them is strange and loathsome. We, on the other hand, welcome death. A Palestinian carries his son on his shoulders with a headband on the kid's forehead with which his father inscribed, 'Martyrdom Seeker.' This is a man who says, 'I want my son to die.' A Palestinian mother says, 'I've given birth to 6 children so that 3 could die in the revolution. I gave birth to children so that they would be martyred.' This does not exist in the Zionist mentality." So much for Talal Abu Ghazala. What on earth? Could you explain this, David? What on earth kind of twisted mindset is this?
I mean, this goes back to the time of Muhammad and his followers, that we love death more than you love life, and it was even put forward as a challenge to the Jews. Hey, if you think you're the true religion, then long for death. And it's like, wait, why would I believe it? Because I follow the true religion. That means I want to die.
That's
Somehow,
chapter 62, verse 6 of the Quran, folks.
yeah, and it's so it's just built into the religion that it's a sign of. Notice in Islam, everything comes down to your confidence levels. We really, 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 we want death so much that we're willing to send our kids into it, even though it's just if you look at how this became such a big issue over the century, Muhammad himself didn't even have assurance of salvation, and he told his followers, like one of them died. This is in the Hadith. One of his followers, a guy named Uthman, a different Uthman from the Caliph Uthman, died, and a Muslim woman said, "Hey, Allah has blessed you with paradise," or something along those lines. And Muhammad jumps in and said, "What? You don't know that?" She says, "What are you talking about? He's one of the best Muslims there are. If he doesn't know where he's going, how can any of us know where we're going?" And Muhammad says, "By Allah, I don't know what Allah is going to do with me." And that's Muhammad talking. And you have that you have the same thing in the Quran. Muhammad is told to say, "I don't know what will be done with me." And so the only way to avoid that is if you actually die slaughtering people in the name of Allah and become a martyr. And so it's just over the centuries, this has tended more and more and more to be obsessed with killing and being killed. And you have all of this in the Quran, but it's actually better from an Islamic perspective. Okay, you can grow up and go to school and have a career and have a just totally normal life and raise kids. You have no clue what Allah is going to do,
Hmm.
but you run out and die as a 10-year-old jihadi, and try to take out some Jews. You're golden. You're golden.
Yep, it's guaranteed. It's promised in the Quran, chapter 9, verse 111. Paradise is guaranteed to those who kill and are killed for Allah. And so that's in line with this. You know, David, I was just working one morning a few days ago, and I went over to MEMRI, that's MEMRI, the Middle East Media Research Institute, very important site. Got lots of clips from the news channels in the Islamic world. And they had an interview with this Hamas guy, Ahmed Abdelhadi, on Lebanese TV, NBN TV. And I need to ask for the help of those who are watching tonight, because what struck me was not so much what Ahmed Abdelhadi said, but what the interviewer said in setting it up. But the interviewer is not named in the clip. And so if anybody knows who this is, but this is a woman who is a newscaster on NBN TV, and you can see that she's thrilled about this Hamas massacre on October 7th. And she said, "We see it as a very wonderful, beautiful, and sweet attack." And, it's just a foreign mindset, David. It's very interesting to note that the contrast is actually quite stark. If the Jews love Allah, then let them love death. Chapter 62, verse 6 of the Quran, and then Jesus saying, "I've come that you might have life and have it abundantly." The contrast is pretty much total. But saying that a massacre of innocent people is wonderful, beautiful, and sweet, certainly it shows the power of this ideology, but it also shows the deep evil that is involved in it.
Yeah, I mean, there were celebrations when, like Osama bin Laden was killed and so on. There were people celebrating that, but imagine if they'd said, "Hey, in order to get to Osama bin Laden, we had to blow up his house and we killed a bunch of people." People still might celebrate that they got Osama bin Laden, but they wouldn't be celebrating killing the other people. That would be viewed as like a regrettable, even though these are all people who are obviously with Osama bin Laden. It would have been viewed, the killing of women or any kids there or something like that would have been viewed as regrettable. Generally wouldn't have been celebrated, except for by some messed up people. But yeah, you could just say, "Hey, we paraglided in there, slaughtered a bunch of people, and wow, yay, that's awesome, we love it."
And then we have, let me see if I can get this. I didn't get these pictures, David, beforehand. I apologize. Very, very negligent on my part, but
Amateur.
anyway. I got all these pictures, and for some reason I overlooked this one, but we're on the case. It's happening. Anyway, this is. Let's see now. We're getting there. This is Majod Abu Arabia, and she is a doctor. She is the medical director of the Karen Wilson Smith Bauer Comprehensive Center for Breast Care at Beaumont Hospital in Dearborn, Michigan. And that is Majod Abu Arabia.
Dearborn, my home away from home. Well,
Yes.
the jail anyway.
And in regard to the October 7th attacks, she posted, on social media, she goes by Majuda. I don't know what the connection of that name is to the name that she is a doctor as, but in any case, it's very clearly the same person. And this is what she posted in connection with October 7th. and the massacres of innocent people. The picture from, I believe it's the musical Oklahoma, if I recall correctly, and it's oh what a beautiful
Oh yeah.
morning, and etc.
Yeah,
So
what's messed up is I've never actually seen that or heard that song, but I know it because there was this guard in the jail I was in, and he would we generally stayed up all night like playing cards and stuff, and so we'd be falling asleep at like 3 or 4 in the morning or something like this. He would come in at like 6 o'clock, just yell. You could hear him coming down the halls. Oh, what a beautiful morning! Just to annoy like all of us.
at least he wasn't celebrating
so-
any massacres.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was like a horrible, horrible thing to do, but now it's even worse.
Yes, indeed.
No, I have no good thoughts about that song.
I'm going to take a small digression here because there's something, I think this is pertinent. Somebody's saying here, deja vu disciple, some people are trying to prove Israel stole the land from Palestinians by showing the 1922 or 1927 Palestine currency.
Oh yeah, go to AP's page. He actually showed it. It's actually Hebrew, and it's called Palestine, just because that was the British mandate of Palestine, not
Yes.
because there was a Palestinian people. But yeah, AP's got a graphic on his Twitter feed.
Oh, there you go, folks. So you can find it there. But in any case, yes, the British administered the area that is now Israel from the end of World War I to 1948 in what was called the Mandate for Palestine, that was specifically set aside for the creation of a Jewish national home. And that's Israel. So there you go. Anyway, let's go, David, because time's a-wasting. Let's go to other jihad from this week. We have in Italy, we have a man who attacked 3 people in Milan. And what was he yelling?
Come on, Robert.
Okay,
it's Allahu Akbar.
here's a wild card. What book was he holding? Was it The
Cat in the
Catcher
Hat.
in the Rye? Was it
Cat
The
in the
Cat
Hat.
in the Hat? It was the Quran,
Hmm,
oddly enough.
that's weird.
So, screaming Allahu Akbar, Quran in hand, he attacked 3 people. You would think that since he had the Book of Peace in his hand, he would have gone and given them flowers, but
Yeah. He should have opened it and read, "If anyone kills a man, it's as if he's killed all mankind." You just ignore the rest of the verse, and especially the verse that comes after it.
that's the only thing the book says, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, and there's no compulsion in religion.
Yeah, that one too.
And you have your religion, we have ours.
Yep. Surah
Yeah.
109, everyone. There, you
That's
heard it
it.
here.
The 3, that's it. The Quran, the moderate Quran.
It's the entire Quran.
Okay, so this lady in France, she was in church on
Hold
Monday.
up, Robert. Hold up. You
Yes,
should
sir.
publish a really short book titled "The Quran According to the Western Media," and it's just, you open it up and it's just 3 verses, those 3 verses, and that's it.
Yeah, one of those blank page books.
Yeah. Just
Only
three
it
verses.
would have 1 page of print and then
Yeah.
200 blank pages. I'll contact the publisher tomorrow. We'll see what he says.
Powerful.
It would be easy for me to get it to him, that's for sure. Okay, this lady's in church on last Monday. This is a Catholic church, Church of Saint Brice sous Forêt, whatever, it's French. Anyway, she's in church, and there are 3 North Africans outside the church making a lot of noise. And so she actually, this 57-year-old woman, she actually goes to tell them to be quiet because people are in the church trying to pray. And they say to her, what do you think they say? I don't know what to do with this. You know what they said to her, David. But they also said to her, Allahu Akbar, we are going to kill you, you Jewish whore. Now, why would they call her Jewish when she's obviously coming out of a church and asking them to be quiet because of the church.
Well, I don't. It doubly doesn't make sense because they're calling her Jewish, but also they're saying they would have a problem with her for being Jewish when, as I've heard, the real problem is just with Zionism, Robert, not with the Jews that Muhammad said to exterminate.
Yeah, you're right. You would think that they would have said, "You Zionist whore," but no. I don't know why not. Anyway, AP has dropped by. Hello, AP. Yes, may Alan guide you. Yeah, I know this Alan guy. I read about him in the Quran. He's very irritable.
Allahu Akbar.
Yes. Okay, we have more in France. Actually, there was a stabbing. I'm sorry, no, that's another story. There was a man who went to in front of a synagogue, and he stood out in front of the synagogue, and David, he started yelling something.
I can't. Hang on. I got to grab the wheel of terror.
Yes, there we go.
All
By
right.
popular demand. That's right. That's
I'm
what
going
he
with
yelled.
Allahu Akbar.
Yep, looks like you got it. And he made death threats. There was a story. Actually, I think somebody was just asking about this story. I don't know if I can find it now in all this. Oh, yeah, here we go. One commenter on your website accused you of using unreliable anonymous sources when reposting an article from Verval about jihadis entering a church and threatening to behead people. Is this true? Of course not, Sigma. This is a story from Valeurs Actuelles, which is an established French publication, and it says that three men entered the St. Christophe Church in Tourcoing. I don't know how to say these French names. Sorry, folks. And they disrupted a wedding ceremony. And when they were confronted, they threatened to behead the individuals. There was a police complaint. And so if you doubt the story from Valeurs Actuelles, then you can check up with the police in that town. The details are there. But this is not from anonymous sources. It's from an established French publication. You guys always try to get out of these things by claiming that the stories are unsourced. Every story on Jihad Watch is sourced. And of course, you say, well, yes, but how do you know that the report in the publication is correct? Well, this is something that we just take for granted on a regular basis. Every day people go to CNN, MSNBC, Fox, New York Times, Washington Post, whatever, and generally believe what is reported. Often there is inaccuracy, but the inaccuracy is not on the side of people exaggerating jihad activity. It's just the opposite, actually. All right, we have quite a lot of activity at the border of the United States, David, the southern border, or what used to be known as the southern border. There were 659 people who were known or suspected terrorists caught at the border this year, that is 2023. Since 2021, there have been 30,000 Turks, 6,000 Afghans, 1,600 Pakistanis, 659 Iranians, and 538 Syrians caught trying to enter the United States illegally at the southern border. And those are just the ones we caught. Now, David, I'm not saying that all these people are terrorists, but do you think that some of them might be?
Yeah, probability wise. I mean, if you were a jihadi and you wanted to get over here, what would you do?
I would go to Mexico.
I'd go to Mexico and I would have a casual stroll across the border.
Exactly.
Hey, since we're on the topic of incarceration, Robert, I was I was locked up with a guy named Alvarez, and he had a 7-year sentence, and but his girlfriend and kids were here, so he said they're going to deport him because he was here illegally. He said they would deport him when he finished his sentence, and he said, and I said, "Well, what are you going to do about your kids?" He goes, "What? We'll be back the next day." But it was just like, it just was, what are you talking about? It's like, I'll be back the next day, man.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. All right, we had a car accident in Long Beach, in California, and this was a gentleman named Khalid Yagobi, and by all accounts, Khalid Yagobi crashed intentionally into a crowd of people and killed one woman. And the only thing they can't figure out is motive, of course, but they can't. They are saying it was intentional. Now, why might that?
Whoa. Wow. That's rare.
Yeah, but why might that have something to do with jihad, David?
I don't know. It's just anything that could have to do with jihad would be a mental disorder. What is it? Sudden onset jihad syndrome or something like that, where
Yeah, there
people
is
just
that.
people just instantly decide to go on a killing spree.
But there's also vehicular jihad that is well
Yeah.
established. Actually, it's quite common in Israel, interestingly
Hmm.
enough. And there have been others elsewhere in Europe and so on. And the Islamic State, ISIS, called for running over random people with your car some years ago. And so it's possible that Khalid Yagobi was doing this. Let's go over to Kyrgyzstan. We don't hear much from Kyrgyzstan, David.
No one does.
I don't know when you were last there, but in
Pe-
Kyrgyzstan,
People in Kyrgyzstan don't hear much about Kyrgyzstan. In fact, 98% of your viewers right now are going, Wait, what? Is that a place?"
yeah, they give people prizes there for being able to spell it properly. In any case, in Kyrgyzstan, there are viral videos. I guess all 20 people, they circulate them. But in Kyrgyzstan, the viral videos are distributing photos of Christians because, of course, Christians are a small minority in Kyrgyzstan, and exhorting people to target the people in the photos. So why would they do that? Isn't Kyrgyzstan moderate, David?
Yes. Everywhere Islam goes is moderate, Robert.
Yes. Yes, indeed. All right. Oh, my goodness. I forgot about Dariush Merjui.
How
Is that
could
his
you
name?
forget about him?
Dariush Merjui. Terrible story, David. I don't know if you heard about this one. This was a prominent filmmaker. I haven't seen any of his movies. I don't know if you have. Dariush Merjui. One of Iran's most prominent filmmakers.
Oh
And
yeah, he was. I think I saw that when he was him and maybe his wife or something like that stabbed to death in the
yep.
apartment or something.
Yeah, the man's in his 80s. And it was a year and a half ago that he made a video, a very furious, angry video, calling out the Islamic Republic and challenging them for their injustices. And he actually even said in the video, "Come and kill me." And now they have. He was killed with multiple stab wounds in a particular place. Where do you think they might have stabbed him, David?
Probability wise, I'd have to go somewhere in here.
You are correct, sir.
Wow,
Once again,
shocker.
we have stabbed in the neck, the Quran, chapter 47, verse 4. When you meet the unbelievers, strike the necks. Now, I don't have any way of verifying this, but I do have a contact who is Iranian, and he tells me that the people who stabbed him were Afghans. That there are quite a few Afghans who have come into Iran during the last few years, and that in the once they're in Iran, then they are often weaponized against people like Dariush Merjui, because they are opponents of the Islamic Republic, that is, opponents of Allah himself. In Belgium, we had another happy assimilated migrant. I know I have his photo here somewhere. There, I think this is him. Let's see. Yep, that's him. There he is with his wife and his daughter. and that is, let me get his name here. I know I've got it. Abdesalem Lassued. And you probably heard about him. The video was going around on the Twitters. He was shooting people. He shot a couple of Swedish football fans, and people said that he had done it because of the Quran burnings in Sweden. But it turned out afterward that he made a video in which he said that apparently it was Swedish football fans just by chance, that he was doing it in revenge for the killing in, was it Illinois, of a 6-year-old Muslim boy by the crazy landlord. And I wanted to mention that. We don't have a whole lot of time left, but I actually was meaning to mention this earlier, and I apologize, it slipped my mind. Eddie on the Dean Show and Ahmed Rahab from CARE and Omar Suleiman, they made a video about this little boy's funeral, and they blamed Sean Hannity and Ben Shapiro for the killing. And they said...
Do Hannity and Shapiro support going around killing random Muslim kids here?
Well, that's exactly the thing. That what's wild about it, David, is not only are they blaming these people who had nothing to do with it, they're claiming that this landlord watched Hannity and watched Ben Shapiro and started to want to kill Muslim 6-year-olds because of them. They're claiming this, but this is extremely dangerous territory for them to be treading for their own message. Can you unpack that for our viewing audience here?
Well, it's just insane when we have tens of thousands of terrorist attacks carried out in the name of Allah since 9/11. People shouting Allahu Akbar, people sometimes explaining ahead of time or leaving messages about why they're killing all these people in the name of Allah. And people, I mean, you remember with the killing of Lee Rigby, that guy, Michael Adebolajo or whatever his name was, he actually stops and gives an interview explaining from the Quran why he's killing this guy and why he's killing other people. And we're told every single time, no, even though the Quran calls for this, even though Muhammad said, I've been made victorious with terror, it somehow has nothing to do with Islam. And yet, anytime anyone else is killed, especially when a Muslim is killed, you see it's because of all these people who condemn violence. But they criticize Islam and they criticize Islamic terror. Therefore, they're responsible for anyone who gets killed.
It seems amazing to me that these guys don't ever seem to realize how this can be used against their own arguments, and indict the entire Quran and their whole Dawah enterprise, because the connection between 44,000 jihad attacks worldwide and the Quran is what they've been trying to ignore and deny for 20 years. And now they're essentially affirming that if you speak critically of something and then some nut goes violent about it, then it's the fault of the criticism. Well, then, if the Quran criticizes Christians and Jews and unbelievers in general, and then some Muslim kills unbelievers, it's the Quran's fault. And so Eddie from the Dean Show ought to be the first guy to be admitting that and saying, I've made a big mistake converting to this religion and I better get out of it.
Yeah, you can't call them champions of consistency, Robert. Never crosses our minds. The question is the real question is, do they actually see it? Do they actually know what hypocrites, or are they just completely, I mean, are they so delusional that they just don't see it? Because you're quite familiar with you have one of these nut jobs who comes along every several years. But so you had Anders Breivik, after years and years and years of Islamic terrorist attacks carried out in the name of Allah, and we're told every step of the way has nothing to do with anything else. They're all just crazy. The sudden onset jihad syndrome. Then you have Anders Breivik, who kills he wasn't killing Muslims, he just kills a bunch of kids at a bunch of teenagers or whatever at this youth camp. And that's your fault. That's your fault, because you somehow gave him the idea. that it's a good idea to go around killing young people at a youth camp, and then a few years go by, and then you have the mosque massacres down in New Zealand, and this guy is actually some sort of white supremacist, and they blame Candace Owens for it right after. That one didn't stick very long, but this guy knows how quick they are to jump on something, and he said, "Yeah, I'm doing this because of Candace Owens." Right? It's like he's clearly troll. I mean, this guy's actually trolling people in his manifesto, and then everyone knows. Oh, you see, Candace Owens inspired this white supremacist to go kill Muslims, and now, of course, you have this, and yeah, I mean, the level of hypocrisy, absolutely insane.
Yep.
They're blaming people who never advocate violence, killing random people, especially killing kids or killing youth and so on. But clear connection between you, because you criticized something at some point, and therefore you're responsible for people who get slaughtered. But actual jihad promoters going around calling for spreading jihad, defending terrorists, and so on, they've got nothing to do with anything that happens.
Yep. So I'm calling you out, Eddie, for your hypocrisy. I hope to see a full retraction in your next episode. All right.
By the way, Robert, would Eddie be welcome to join us here and
come on, Eddie.
Explain how he's actually consistent?
Eddie, you are hereby invited to next week's episode of This Week in Jihad. You can tell us how it is that Ben Shapiro and Hannity are responsible for the killing of this poor child, but the Quran is not responsible for 44,000 jihad attacks. That's the question. You have a week to prepare. And contact me at director@jihadwatch.org, and we'll set up the coordinates and all that, and I will send you the link to get on. Eddie, I'm looking forward to seeing you, man.
Don't give Eddie your coordinates. That's a bad idea.
No, not my address. I mean the ability to get onto the show. This thing has a mute button though too, right? Because he's going to try to monopolize everything. Not that he's going to really come on, but yes, I see mute. Yes, so no problem. All right. So until then, we'll be back next week, maybe with Eddie, and probably not though. And anyway, in the meantime, pray as if it all depends on God, work as if it all depends on you, and we'll see you next week. Unless there's no jihad.
That would be something.